So my wish for all of us is let's stay playful, let's have fun.
Alan Alda is 89 years old now. For 7 years, he's been hiding something from fans. In 2015, doctors gave him devastating news. He kept it secret for 3 years.
That I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
When he finally spoke up in 2018, people were shocked. The man who made millions laugh on Message was fighting a battle nobody saw coming. But that's not even the worst part. What he revealed about his childhood will break your heart. The trauma that shaped Hawkeye Pierce started when Alan was just 2 years old. Alan Alda came into the world as Alfonso Joseph d'Abruzzo on January 28, 1936, in the Bronx, and he arrived already surrounded by stage lights. His father, Robert Alda, had invented his own last name by taking the first 2 letters of each part of his real name, and that little trick placed Alan inside show business before he could even form full sentences. But then, life struck early. At just 2, during a family trip to the Jersey Shore, Alan caught polio. Everything changed in a moment. He spent a full year in hospitals, and doctors used treatments that felt ancient and brutal. Every hour, scalding hot wool blankets were wrapped around his limbs. The method came from Elizabeth Kenny, who believed heat and movement could retrain damaged nerves. Some doctors trusted her, others didn't. All Alan knew was the pain. He later said it felt like torture. For 6 straight months, without a paid nurse, his parents applied the burning blankets themselves. He watched his father's face twist with guilt each time, and sometimes that memory hurt him more than the treatment itself. Still, something steady grew inside him during those long nights, something that would carry him through the rest of his life. His home wasn't peaceful either. His mother, Joan Brown, once an actress, battled schizophrenia that never stayed quiet. Alan was still a small boy when the illness began to flare. At 6, he saw something that never left him. One night in 1942, Joan slipped into a delusion, convinced his father had been unfaithful after a late performance. She grabbed a kitchen knife. She lunged. She screamed. Alan stood nearby, frozen, and then ran forward and shoved the blade into the table to stop her. That moment hung over the family from then on. Knives were hidden. Sharp objects felt dangerous. Alan even believed for a time that he had somehow caused her illness through his own mistakes. Since the family never spoke about mental health, the silence made the fear louder. Yet, he learned something too. He learned to study people. He watched his mother's eyes to predict when things might turn. That habit, born from fear, later helped him become a performer who could read a room in seconds. His childhood kept moving, literally. Because his father toured with burlesque shows, the family lived out of hotels for years. And while most kids learned their ABCs from books, Alan learned rhythm and timing from backstage whispers. By age 3, he stood in the wings of theaters, listening to chorus girls laugh, hearing comedians practice their lines, and catching the sound of heels clicking across wooden floors. His father tried to shield him from the strip-tease acts by telling him to turn around, but sound has no direction. Alan soaked in everything. He later called it a strange kind of education, one that made him grow up faster and also made him feel like he never quite fit with the boys his age. But he learned how performers breathed, how jokes landed, how people changed the moment they stepped on stage. That became priceless later. And then there were the languages. At home, his grandparents spoke Italian. His parents spoke English. He moved between the two without thinking. It gave him a good ear and a flexible tongue. It also helped him understand people in a deeper way, something that showed up again and again in his work, and his curiosity about human behavior. By 15, in the summer of 1951, Alan stepped on a stage with purpose. He performed with his father in Barnesville, Pennsylvania, in a toned-down burlesque sketch, at a small summer stock theater. The sets were shaky, props failed, things broke in the middle of scenes. And that was where he discovered improvisation. When something went wrong, he made up lines. He fixed the moment. He kept the show alive. People noticed. His father noticed too. That night became a quiet turning point. He understood that quick thinking could save anything, and that kind of skill built the backbone of his comedy for decades. But home life fell apart. In 1947, his parents divorced. The world around him shifted again. Soon after, his mother was institutionalized and treated with aggressive methods like electroshock therapy. He visited her when he could, but those visits were heavy. The distance between them grew. That period taught him loneliness, but also depth. Later in his acting life, he reached for those feelings whenever he needed to portray someone carrying hidden weight. College came next. In 1954, Allen enrolled at Fordham University. He studied English, but the theater pulled him in fast. By sophomore year, he was directing and acting in plays. In 1955, he starred in The Devil's Advocate in the small campus theater, and people saw how he could slide into complicated characters with ease. During his junior year, he studied abroad. Europe opened him up even more. In Rome, he performed on stage and even appeared on Dutch TV. It felt like he was soaking in every kind of acting he could find. But there was tension too. His father favored his half-brother Anthony, and that old ache came back, pushing Allen to work harder, to prove himself. But once he finished his degree in 1956, he didn't slow down. He went to the Cleveland Playhouse through a Ford Foundation grant in 1958. The training there was intense, 12-hour days, classical voice work, stage combat, emotional discipline. He took on plays like To Dorothy a Son and Monique, each one stretching him further. The Cleveland Playhouse had a reputation for sharpening future stars, and he walked out of there with a toolkit strong enough for both Broadway and Hollywood. Then the Army called. In 1957, he was drafted. He spent time at Fort Benning in Georgia and then in South Korea for 6 months, from 1958 to 1959. He worked mostly clerical jobs and managed a mess tent, which he later joked about. But he also wrote skits, funny skits, satirical skits that boosted morale. Soldiers laughed, officers laughed, and Allen realized that humor could lighten even the heaviest rooms. This experience shaped how he understood comedy, and also prepared him to later play a certain wise-cracking surgeon on television. After leaving the Army, he touched Chicago's Second City Improv troupe in 1958. His stay was short, just a few months, but the impact was huge. Second City taught him to trust instincts, listen deeply, and create jokes out of nothing but the moment. That skill would follow him forever. And then came his first real television break. In 1958, he appeared on The Phil Silvers Show as CPL Steve Macy in an episode called The Star Maker. The show was already popular. Allen was young and still figuring things out, but he delivered a dry, reluctant kind of humor that people loved. It was only one episode. Still, it opened the door. More auditions came. More opportunities followed. And without knowing it, that small role nudged him toward the path that would later make him one of the most familiar faces on television. Alda stepped onto Broadway in November 1959, with the nervous energy of someone who wanted to prove he belonged there. He played Marty Radner, a telephone repairman in Only in America at the Court Theater. The show opened on November 19th and closed 3 weeks later after just 24 performances. Even so, something unusual happened on that stage. Whenever a prop jammed or a set piece fell apart, Alda was the one who stepped forward. He joked with the audience, he fixed things with quick hands and a calm smile. Reviewers wrote that his improvising saved scenes that would have collapsed without him. The play faded fast, but Alda's ability to think on his feet stayed with everyone who saw him. It became one of those early signs that he wasn't going to be the kind of actor who froze when things got messy. He handled pressure like he had trained for it all his life, and that tiny opening night window became a quiet hint of where he would go next. Soon after, in 1961, he found himself under bright lights again for The Apple Tree, the musical Mixed Stories by Mark Twain, Frank Stockton, and Jules Feiffer. Alda performed opposite Barbara Harris, and together they kept the show running for more than 300 performances. But it wasn't smooth behind the curtain. Director Mike Nichols pushed for strict control, and Alda pushed back when Nichols wanted to cut scenes he believed were important to his character's growth. Arguments followed, closed rooms, raised voices. Even reporters caught wind of the tension. Yet night after night, Alda walked out on stage and delivered. His performance earned him a Tony nomination for Best Actor in a Musical. And though the show looked polished from the audience, the backstage clashes revealed that Alda was starting to trust his own artistic voice more than anyone else's. Then came 1962, when Alda joined O.C. Davis's Pearly Victorious. He played P.C. Lutibell, a naive black maid, using a dialect and physical style that required careful craft and deep respect. At a time when the country was shifting under the weight of civil rights battles, the satire cut through with sharp humor and courage. The show ran for 261 performances. Audiences loved it. Martin Luther King Jr. attended its 100th performance and took photos with the cast. Alda's work won him the Theatre World Award, and for the first time, he felt the power of a role that carried political weight. It pushed him straight into the film adaptation Gone Are the Days in 1963, marking his first official movie credit. That year became one of those rare turning points when an actor grows in every direction at once. But 1964 brought a different kind of storm. Fair Game for Lovers opened on February 10th at the Court Theatre and closed after only 8 performances. People whispered about an off-stage affair between Alda and co-star Elizabeth Ashley. Headlines appeared. Producers panicked. The show collapsed before it had a chance to breathe. Even so, Alda earned another Theatre World Award for his performance. Yet the rumors followed him for years, adding weight to a time when he could not control the story being told about him. It was a painful stretch. His reputation bent under pressure, and his career slowed. Still, he held on, knowing talent lasts longer than scandal. By 1967, he stepped into the trial of the Catonsville Nine, an off-Broadway play about Catholic activists who burned draft files in protest of the Vietnam War. Alda played an idealistic anti-war figure with intensity. The government noticed. FBI agents came to performances and watched the audience, taking notes and snapping photos. People sitting in the dark felt eyes on them. The tension seeped into the air. Alda said later that he had never experienced anything like it. The stage felt alive in a new and dangerous way. It reminded him that theater could touch real nerves, real politics, and real fear, and that sometimes performing meant standing inches from trouble. Television arrived next. On May 31, 1963, Alda appeared in an episode of Route 66 titled Soda Pop and Paper Flags. He played a wandering hobo caught in a violent mob accusation in Missouri. His emotional range surprised people who knew him mostly for comedy. He showed raw fear and frustration, and made the episode one of the most talked about that season. TV executives noticed. For the first time, he wasn't being called a stage actor trying television. He was being called someone who could do anything. That same year, his film Gone Are the Days hit theaters on September 23rd with a budget near $200,000. Critics liked its sharp take on race, but mainstream audiences weren't ready for it. The film earned only about $2.8 million worldwide. It was praised but not watched, admired but not embraced. Alda's movie momentum slowed again, and he returned to searching for his next big foothold. In 1967, he joined That Was the Week That Was, a satirical NBC show that poked fun at government policies and the Vietnam War. Alda wrote sketches that were bold and unfiltered, and the network's nerves grew with every episode. Executives feared political backlash. The show was canceled abruptly early in 1964, but it left its mark. It taught Alda that satire can be a bright light or a dangerous blade, depending on who holds it and who watches. Then came the oddest chapter. The Extraordinary Seaman, filmed in 1968 and released in 1969, paired Alda with David Niven and Faye Dunaway. The movie mixed surreal war scenes with dreamlike sequences that confused almost everyone. Reviews were brutal. Director John Frankenheimer later said it was a disaster from start to finish. Alda felt crushed. He stepped away from films for 2 years and faced marital strain at the same time. It was a quiet collapse that forced him to rebuild from the inside out. But life has a way of opening new doors when the old ones close. By 1970, Alda began appearing on The David Frost Show, and one episode in November stood out. He interviewed Jane Fonda, asking direct questions about feminism and draft resistance. The debate turned intense. Viewers talked about it for weeks. People saw a different side of him. Someone who cared, someone who thought deeply, someone willing to lean into complicated issues. The moment pushed him closer to the world of social commentary and helped shape the public's view of him as more than an actor. Then everything changed with one audition. In 1972, Alda walked into a room to try out for the pilot of MASH. He improvised a surgery scene as Hawkeye Pierce, mixing sarcasm with tension in a way no one expected. The producers thought he was too much of a stage actor at first, but after watching him twist humor into stress and stress into humor, they knew they had their lead. The pilot aired in September 1972. That audition turned into 11 years of fame. By February 18, 1973, when the Long John Flap aired, Alda had already shaped the show. He wrote the episode, added Hawkeye's pranks, and showed how humor could soften the weight of war. Fans loved it. Critics loved it. He earned his first Emmy nomination from that episode alone. It marked the moment when he moved from just starring in the show to shaping it. During all 11 seasons, Alda lived in New Jersey and worked in Los Angeles. Every week he flew across the country, chasing both family and career. It cost him sleep and sometimes peace at home, but it kept him grounded. And it gave him emotional fuel for episodes like Mail Call in 1973, where soldiers read letters from home. He understood homesickness better than most. But success brings tension. In 1974, his relationship with Wayne Rogers, who played Trapper John, cracked. Rogers felt sidelined as Hawkeye became the center of more storylines. Writers leaned toward Alda's voice, and the shift pushed Rogers to leave after season 3. It reshaped the entire show and signaled how much influence Alda had behind the scenes. Then came October 23, 1975. When the episode The Late Captain Pierce aired. Alda both directed and starred in it. He used real stories from Vietnam veterans to shape his performance. And the result was a heartbreaking blend of grief and humor. Critics praised it. Audiences felt every moment. Alda won the Emmy for Outstanding Lead Actor that year, and the show moved into a deeper, more serious phase because of it. Ratings climbed, and MASH became one of the most respected shows on television. In 1977, something shifted inside Alan Alda, and you could feel it the moment he stepped in as a producer on MASH. He took a show known for fast jokes and wild humor, and slowly turned it towards something heavier, something closer to truth. His first big move came with the episode In Love and War in Season 6. It aired on October 25, 1977. Hawkeye fell in love with a Korean nurse named Soon Lee, And the romance cracked open all the confusion and bitterness he carried toward the war. The team even filmed scenes in real military hospitals, and the episode reached a 24.3 Nielsen rating, pulling in more than 21 million viewers. People noticed the change right away. Comedy was still there, but the heart of the show had shifted, and that shift opened the door for deeper stories about trauma, ethics, and the human cost of war. Bit by bit, Alda guided MASH into becoming one of the most respected shows in television history, and along the way, he wrote or directed 19 episodes. By 1979, his face was everywhere, and so was the number tied to it. He was earning $25,000 an episode. That added up to about $20 million per season in today's value. It made him the highest-paid actor on television, but it also brought trouble. Cast members whispered about pay gaps. Crew members said he had too much influence. Old wounds reopened when people remembered McLean Stevenson's exit in 1975 and blamed ego and spotlight battles. That same year, Alda tried to stretch himself with a film he wrote and starred in called The Seduction of Joe Tynan. It made about $41 million and became his biggest hit of the decade. Still, his rising power on MASH created a mix of respect, tension, and frustration that never fully disappeared. Then came something more personal. In Season 8, in an episode called Lend a Hand that aired on January 22, 1980, Alda brought his real father, Robert Alda, and his half-brother Anthony onto the show. The script had them working side by side as surgeons, but underneath the scenes sat years of hurt. Alan had always felt his father favored Anthony, and yet it was Robert who suggested the final moment where the surgeons worked together. The idea moved him to tears. Alan didn't want to include it at first, but he finally agreed. It made his father happy. Even though the birthday subplot was criticized for dragging, that episode stands as one of the rawest moments in MASH history. A family trying to heal while the cameras rolled. Robert passed in 1986, Anthony in 2009. The episode now feels like a gift they unknowingly left behind. But not everyone had the same warm memories. Director Jackie Cooper wrote in his 1981 autobiography that Alda carried a kind of hidden hostility on set. According to Cooper, by 1978, Alda barely spoke to him. Scripts kept changing. Other actors felt pushed aside. One tense moment stuck with Cooper when Alda told him, "You have no idea what kind of people we are." Critics later said Alda's rewrites often helped protect other cast members, not harm them, but the tension grew thick. By the end of Cooper's time on the show, he and Alda almost never spoke. Creative power has a way of turning quiet disagreements into something sharp and lasting. Still, the work kept moving. On November 6, 1980, Season 9's The Life You Save aired. Alda wrote and directed it, drawing from his visits to real VA hospitals. The episode showed brutal triage scenes and Hawkeye wrestling with impossible choices. It hit so hard that more than 25 million viewers tuned in each week during its run. The episode won him the 1982 Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Directorial Achievement in Comedy Series. It also signaled another shift in the show's direction. More moral questions, more psychological weight, more of Alda's fingerprints on every frame. Away from television, the risks grew bigger. In 1981, he wrote, directed, and starred in The Four Seasons, a story inspired by his own mistakes with friends. The production ballooned out of control. Reshoots piled up. Costs climbed to around $25 million. Investors sued. His company nearly went bankrupt. Even though the movie earned a decent return, the chaos behind it became one of the most painful chapters of his career. Hoping for something smoother, he tried again in 1986 with Sweet Liberty. He wrote it, directed it, starred in it. The cast looked incredible with Michael Caine, Michelle Pfeiffer, and Lillian Gish. But the film didn't land. Critics said the satire felt thin. The insider jokes fell flat. The box office stayed quiet. For Alda, it was another reminder that Hollywood rarely lets actors escape the shadows of the characters that made them famous. Then came a twist. In 1989, he appeared in Woody Allen's Crimes and Misdemeanors as a charming yet slippery ophthalmologist. The role earned him major acclaim, including a Best Supporting Actor nomination. For a moment, it seemed like a fresh start. But in 1992, when allegations against Allen resurfaced, Alda publicly supported him. He said he would still work with him. The statement sparked a fierce debate and left Alda standing in a storm he could not control. Troubles off-screen had already touched his own life more deeply. In 1992, while performing in the Broadway play Jake's Women, he slipped on stage and fractured his wrist. He kept performing with crutches and turned the injury into a bit of comedy. But something else lingered. The fall worsened tremors he didn't fully understand. Years later, he learned they were early signs of Parkinson's disease. He wasn't diagnosed until 2015, 3.5 years before he told the public. His wife had noticed things he tried to ignore, like the way his arms no longer swung when he walked. The diagnosis could have sent him inward, but instead he approached it with curiosity and grit. Back in 1994, before he knew any of that, he starred in White Mile, a tense TV thriller about a ruthless CEO who pushes his employees into a deadly rafting trip. The movie had a tight $5 million budget, yet it snagged 2 Golden Globe nominations and an Emmy nomination for sound editing. It also reunited him with Mike Farrell. The role surprised people. It was colder, sharper, a reminder that Alda could stretch far beyond Hawkeye when he wanted to. Then, years later, came one of his strongest resurgences. On The West Wing, from 2004 to 2006, he played Senator Arnold Vinnick, a Republican presidential candidate who argued passionately about stem cell research. The role mirrored Alda's own interest in science and ethics. His first major episode aired on January 11, 2006. The performance won him the 2006 Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a Drama Series. It showed audiences a different kind of character than he had ever played before, and renewed his reputation as someone who could bring depth and humanity to political conflict. That passion for science had deeper roots. Between 1993 and 2005, he hosted Scientific American Frontiers on PBS, guiding viewers through discoveries in genetics, physics, medicine, and more. Over 52 episodes, he spoke with figures like Jane Goodall and pushed complex ideas into everyday language. One of the most heated episodes aired on November 13, 2001. Growing Up. Different explored cloning and genetic engineering at a time when Congress was debating whether to ban human cloning entirely. Alda's support for genetic research angered some viewers, but he didn't back down. He believed people needed to understand the science before they feared it. In 2016, he surprised everyone again by taking on the role of Uncle Pete in Louis C.K.'s web series Horace and Pete. The show premiered on January 30, 2016, and felt raw, stripped down, almost theatrical. Alda delivered some of his most vulnerable work in years, but the show collapsed financially. Louis C.K. announced the cancellation on September 3, 2016, revealing that the project had lost money and that actors, including Alda, hadn't been paid for their final episodes. Even so, the performance stayed with people. It reminded them that Alda never stopped experimenting, even in his 80s. Through all of this, his personal life anchored him. He married Arlene Weiss in 1957, and the bond between them held firm through decades of pressure. Arlene became his guide whenever the chaos of fame threatened to pull him under. She supported him through anxiety, career storms, and later, through the challenges of Parkinson's. They raised 3 daughters, Eve, Elizabeth, and Beatrice, in a home that offered stability even when the industry didn't. Arlene helped him shape his insights into fear, empathy, and communication, lessons he would later share in books and interviews. His Parkinson's story became public in 2018, but his struggle began long before. He first noticed symptoms during a tap dance class. His wife saw it earlier. She noticed the missing arm swing, the restless sleep, the way his dreams burst into movement. The diagnosis hurt, but he didn't hide. Instead, he co-founded the Alda Center for Communicating Science. More than 10,000 scientists have trained there, learning how to connect with people through empathy and clarity. Alda turned his illness into a mission, even continuing to act and exercise daily, with marching and boxing to keep his body sharp. The hardest personal blow came from family. His half-brother Anthony died in 2009 at age 52 from cirrhosis after long battles with addiction. Their childhood had been chaotic, full of burlesque backstage nights and unstable routines. Alan carried guilt and grief, knowing that their relationship never fully healed. He poured some of that pain into writing, including the MASH episode Lend a Hand, which served as a symbolic truce with his father. Anthony's death exposed how much weight the Alda family had carried behind their public smiles. Yet the work never truly stopped. At age 89, he hosts his podcast Clear and Vivid, which began in 2019 and now holds more than 365 episodes. Guests like Malala Yousafzai, Malcolm Gladwell, and John Leguizamo have joined him for 45-minute conversations about empathy, communication, aging, and the stories that shape us. The podcast has climbed charts around the world. It shows people that Alda's mind is still alive with curiosity and kindness. His legacy stretches even farther. 6 Emmy Awards, a 2019 Screen Actors Guild Lifetime Achievement Award, books that became bestsellers, including If I Understood You, Would I Have This Look on My Face, published in 2017, the Alda Center's work with thousands of scientists, and decades of performances that changed television and film forever.